to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, welcome to ASEAN in Focus. Joining me today is from our EBC Thailand Bureau's Esther Odanga. Hello, Esther. Good to see you back.
Hi, Alma. I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, giving you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Medics are battling exhaustion and the risk of COVID-19 as they raced Monday to treat scores of people injured by a devastating earthquake on Indonesia's Sulawesi Island.
Mount Tamaro on Java Island spewed hot ash 2.8 miles into the air as it erupted late Saturday.
Balitang IATF po tayo, no? Inaprubahan po na inyong IATF ang rekomendasyon.
Office of the Presidential Spokesperson, Secretary Harry Roque, announces that the IATF has extended entry travel restrictions and guidelines for foreign travelers from more than 30 countries until January 31st of this month to prevent the spread of new and more contagious variants of COVID-19.
Reigning Olympic champion Carolina Marin bolstered her chances of defending in Tokyo later this year after claiming the Thailand Open in Bangkok Sunday over top seed Tai Tzu Ying.
First to Indonesia, where medics are battling exhaustion and the risk of COVID-19 as they race to treat scores of people injured by the devastating earthquake on the Sulawesi Island. At least 81 people were killed and thousands left homeless by the powerful 6.2 magnitude quake that struck early Friday, reducing buildings to a tangled mass of twisted metal and chunks of concrete in the seaside city of Mamuju. Mass doctors treated patients with broken limbs and other injuries at a makeshift medical center set up outside the only one of the city's hospitals that survived the quake, relatively intact. The open-air triage center was desperately short of staff, and those on hand worked frantically despite the risk of contracting the coronavirus. The hospital was scrambling to open up more rooms for surgery and erect additional tents outside to treat the injured, according to Nurwardi, who, like many Indonesians, goes by one name. But fears that another quake could bring down the building were adding to the challenges. It was still unclear how many people, dead or alive, could still be under mountains of debris as rescuers rushed to find survivors more than 3 days after the disaster. Most of the 81 dead were found in Mamuju, but some bodies were also recovered south of the city of 110,000 people in the West Sulawesi province. Friday's tremor triggered panic among residents of the island, which was hit by a 2018 quake tsunami disaster that killed thousands. At least 18 people had been pulled out of the rubble alive, including a pair of young sisters, according to official data. Police began using sniffer dogs to help in the search at a badly damaged hospital as body bags were also filled with recovered corpses.
Staying in Indonesia, medics battled exhaustion and the risk of COVID-19 as they raced Monday to treat scores of people injured by devastating earthquake on Indonesia's Sulawesi Island. At least 81 people were killed and thousands left homeless by the powerful 6.2 magnitude quake that struck early Friday, reducing buildings to a tangled mass of twisted metal and chunks of concrete in the seaside of Mamuju. Mass doctors treated patients with broken limbs and other injuries at the makeshift medical center set up outside the only one of the city's hospitals.
And staying in Indonesia, Mount Semeru on Java Island spewed hot ash 2.8 miles into the air as it erupted late Saturday. People in nearby villages on Sunday morning cleaned their homes, lawns, and crops, which were covered by ash. There were no reports of injuries or deaths. Take a look. Now, the eruption came a month after the same active volcano spouted a towering column, prompting a call for around 500 people to temporarily evacuate their homes. Now, Indonesia is home to about 130 active volcanoes due to its position on the Ring of Fire, a belt of tectonic plate boundaries circling the Pacific Ocean where frequent seismic activity occurs. Now, in late 2018, a volcano in the strait between Java and Sumatra Islands erupted, causing an underwater landslide that unleashed a tsunami which killed more than 400 people. In the Philippines, in a laging handa public briefing, Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte gave an update on the contact tracing efforts of their local government following the detection of the first COVID-19 UK variant infected patient in the Philippines this week. According to the mayor, they have been able to conduct contact tracing on 143 individuals, consisting of first and second generation contacts of patient 04. Let's listen in.
We have already contact traced 143 individuals. No? These comprise of yung close contacts o tinatawag natin first generation contacts. Ito yung mga nakasama talaga ng malapit ng ating pong pasyente at yung mga second generation contacts. Ito naman yung mga contacts ng close contacts. So doon po sa first generation contacts kasama po dyan yung mga pasahero na galing QC na kasama niya kasi syempre pag hindi taga QC hindi naman po namin responsibilidad. Pangalawa, kasama rin po yung mga health workers at yung mga birth na nag-alalay at tumulong sa ating pong pasyente na makarating mula sa hotel kung saan siya naka-quarantine hanggang po sa isolation facility kung saan siya ay ngayon nananatili. At yung mga family members din, bagamat hindi naman sila talaga close contacts dahil hindi naman sila nakasama ng pasyente after coming home from Dubai, as a precautionary measure, we also tested them. Then there's the second generation contacts as well. No? So more than half of them have already been swabbed and all of them are currently on quarantine. Yes, so ang alam ko, based on the DOH information, they have already contact traced the majority of the passengers from this flight. No? And like I mentioned earlier, 8 doon sa mga pasahero ay taga Quezon City. So doon sa 8 na taga Quezon City, ang 7 po ay amin nang na-contact trace. First and second generation contact tracing at yung isa lang po nawawala kasi mali po ang contact details na inilagay po niya, no? So hindi po namin siya makontak. There's one individual that is missing, no? Now doon sa mga na-contact trace nating mga pasahero from Quezon City, lahat po ay na-swab na, lahat po ay isolated na, kaso lang po hinihintay pa po nating lumabas ang mga resulta. Yung sa girlfriend naman na reswab na, nandun na rin po siya sa isolation facility. Again, we are still waiting for the results to come out.
In another news, Beijing's top diplomat pledged Saturday to donate 500,000 coronavirus vaccine shots to the Philippines, Manila officials said. President Rodrigo Duterte's administration is scrambling to lock in supplies of COVID-19 vaccines for the country's 110 million people. Among other deals, the Philippines has already agreed to buy 25 million doses of Chinese company Sinovac's CoronaVac. It is not clear which vaccine China will donate and whether the donation is part of the earlier deal. The Chinese embassy in Manila did not respond to AFP's request for comment. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi told his counterpart of the intended donation when he was in Manila on Saturday, the Philippine Foreign Ministry said. The news follows similar announcement from other countries in the region earlier this week. Cambodia said it would receive 1 million free doses from Beijing on Friday after Myanmar was set to get 300,000.
All right, Eagle News here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Hello Happy Peeps, Adi Raj here. I will be your celebrity on delivery sa PM is the Key this Tuesday. Abangan yan sa Happy Time at 12 noon. Kita kits!
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back. China will donate 1 million doses of its Sinovac coronavirus vaccine to Cambodia, the kingdom's strongman premier Hun Sen said, thanking friend Beijing for its generosity. Cambodia has long been a staunch ally of Beijing, receiving billions of dollars in soft loans and investment from China. While many countries reacted early in the pandemic by closing its borders to Chinese travelers, Hun Sen refused and even traveled to Beijing to meet with leader Xi Jinping in a show of solidarity. The premier announced late Friday that China has offered to donate shots made by the firm Sinovac. Friend China, he said, is helping us with 1 million doses in an audio message on his official Facebook page, adding that the doses will vaccinate 500,000 people. The first people to get the jab would include frontline health workers, teachers, soldiers, the premier's bodyguards, and officials around the king, he said. Sinovac's CoronaVac was rolled out in Turkey on Friday after tests there showed it to be 91.25% effective. But more robust trials in Brazil demonstrated an efficacy rate of around 50%, much lower than those of rival shots from Moderna, Pfizer-BioNTech, and Oxford AstraZeneca. A third trial in Indonesia, where authorities this week kicked off a mass vaccination drive with CoronaVac shots, showed an efficacy of 65.3%. Cambodia has appeared to do well in the pandemic so far, registering just 436 cases, though experts say the low numbers are likely due to a lack of testing.
The World Health Organization's Emergency Committee called for globally ramped-up coronavirus sequencing studies in order to combat troubling new variants stalking the globe. The global death toll from COVID-19 surpassed 2 million on Friday. The WHO called for a worldwide acceleration in vaccine rollouts, as well as ramp up in efforts to study the sequencing of the virus in order to tackle troubling new strains emerging around the world. Watch this.
It will come with almost 2 million deaths and new variants appearing in multiple countries. The emergency committee emphasized the need for governments to do all they can to curb infections through tried and tested public health measures. The more the virus is suppressed, the less opportunity it has to mutate. We need to be more efficient than the virus and reach excellence in everything we do. There is only one way out of this storm, and that's to share the tools we have and commit to use them together. The committee called for upgrading national sequencing capacity so that as the virus changes, we can effectively monitor and respond to new challenges.
Since that time, as Dr. Tedros said, 90 million people contaminated, nearly 2 million people died. And the committee focused on two things. The first is a worry about the variant which starts circulating in some places in the world. This variant requires a strong and quick effort in research, in collaboration between research teams, in sharing of information, as suggested and mentioned by Dr. Tedros, and also about data sharing. I think we are in a race between the virus, who is going to continue trying to mutate in order to spread more easily, and the humanity which has to try to stop this spreading. And this effort of research needs to be very, very quick and very intense. Fortunately, there is also a good news. Good news is about the vaccine. But this good news should not be transformed in bad news. And we should remember that the objective for 2021 is 20% of the population vaccinated, not only in rich countries, but also in low and middle income countries. And it's extremely important not to transform this good news into a bad news. So, and for the vaccine, of course, some of the recommendations of the emergency committee are about trying to know more about the efficacy of the vaccine, the efficacy against the new variants, etc. I will not go into the detail. I would like to add a final point about the situation in which the world is presently. We are a little bit paralyzed, we are a little bit confused, and clearly the question of travel inside the world, around the world, by air, by road, by sea, needs to be better, perhaps possible and organized. And this is why one of the recommendations of the committee to WHO was to take a strong lead in order to produce a clear guidance and scientifically based guidance about how best to facilitate and permit the circulation of people in a safe manner by air, by sea, and by... I thank you.
And a small proportion of that may be due to the emergence of variants that are fitter. But the large proportion of that transmission has occurred because we are reducing our social physical distancing. Our behaviour is, as the DG said in his speech, we're not breaking the chains of transmission. The virus is exploiting our lack of tactical commitment, our fatigue, the breaking down of our behaviours. The vaccine is light at the end of the tunnel. It is a hugely, it's a massive advance, but it doesn't answer and it won't address every question that we have. We have to continue doing the other measures.
The Office of the Presidential Spokesperson, Secretary Harry Roque, announced that the IATF has extended entry travel restrictions and guidelines for foreign travelers. That is from 30 countries until the end of this month, January 31st, to prevent the spread of the new and more contagious variants of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the government will continue to strengthen contact tracing protocols and strictly enforce the facility-based 14-day quarantine on all contacts of individuals who are positive for the coronavirus. Let's listen in.
Balitang IATF po tayo, no? Inaprubahan po ng inyong IATF ang rekomendasyon na ma-extend hanggang January 31, 2021 ang entry travel restrictions at mga patakaran sa mga biyaherong galing or transiting sa mga sumusunod na mga bansa kung saan meron na pong bagong strain ng COVID-19. United Kingdom, Denmark, Ireland, Japan, Australia, Israel, the Netherlands, the People's Republic of China, kasama ang Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, Switzerland, France, Germany, Iceland, Italy, Lebanon, Singapore, Sweden, South Korea, South Africa, Canada, Spain, United States of America, Portugal, India, Finland, Norway, Jordan, Brazil, Austria, Pakistan, Jamaica, Luxembourg, Oman. Kaugnay nito, inatasan ng Department of Transportation ang mahigpit na pagpapatupad ng issuances sa mga airline na magsasakay ng mga pasahero na mahigpit na pinagbabawal ng pakapasok sa Pilipinas ayon sa travel restrictions ng Office of the President at ng inyong IATF. Sa kabilang banda, papalakasin ng contact tracing protocols kung saan isasama ang third generation contacts para sa no new variant cases. Lahat ng matutukoy na close contacts ay kailangang sumailalim sa mahigpit na facility-based 14-day quarantine, samantalang ang natirang contacts mula sa flight manifest ay papayuhan sumunod sa appropriate quarantine protocols. Kaugnay nito, inatasan ng Department of the Interior and Local Government, DILG, na maglabas ng advisories sa mga local government units para paghandaan at palakasin ang maintenance ng kanilang quarantine facilities. Inatasan din ng DILG na tiyakin na mapapatupad ng tama ang paggamit ng StaySafe.ph system ng mga LGUs para sa contact tracing. Sa mga nagpositibo, liban sa prescribed testing and quarantine protocols, kailangan nilang sumailalim sa whole genome sequencing na gagawin ng Department of Health, University of the Philippines, Philippine Genome Center, at ang National Institutes of Health, UP-NIH. Kaugnay nito, ang Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, OWA, at ang DOTR One-Stop Shop ay sisiguraduhin na magpapatupad ang tamang protocols sa mga nagpositibo na new COVID-19 variants. Inaprubahan din po ng IATF ang pagpapatuloy ng weekly genomic biosurveillance activities ng Department of Health, UP-PGC, UP-NIH sa mga papasok ng pasahero at local cases kung saan binibigyang prioridad ang mga pasyenteng nasa reinfected patients at ang nasa clusters. Inutos din ng IATF ang pagkakaroon ng small working group para maresolba ang mga issue tungkol sa funding, availability at paggamit ng quarantine facilities at eventual handling sa LGUs ng mga paparating na overseas Filipinos. Ang DOH ang inatasan na manguna sa small group na ito. Sa iba pang mga bagay, inaprubahan ng IATF ang updated criteria for selecting priority areas for COVID-19 vaccines deployment ng Department of Health in consultation with the Interim National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, NITAG, for COVID-19 vaccines. At panghuli, nirevise ng IATF ang operational capacity ng road, rail, maritime, and aviation sectors sa pampublikong transportasyon sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng General Community Quarantine at Modified General Community Quarantine. Okay, yan po ang pinakahuling balita galing sa inyong IATF. Uulitin ko po, yung travel restrictions para po sa mga bansang meron na pong bagong variant ng COVID-19. Suma total, 30 countries po ito. Ito po ay pinalawig pa hanggang January 31 ng taong ito. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.
In Vietnam, the National Steering Committee for COVID-19 Prevention and Control on Friday ordered subordinate levels to strictly control borders in order to absolutely prevent illegal entrance. The order was made as the 13th National Party Congress and the Lunar New Year come near. Those who enter Vietnam by land must be subject to mandatory quarantine at concentrated camps managed by the army and shall not be required to pay quarantine accommodation fees. Anyone who detects strange people or those likely to have returned from foreign countries need to report to local authorities. The COVID-19 pandemic is still evolving complicatedly around the world with 9.7 million new cases and 174,000 fatalities reported since the beginning of this year, according to Vietnamese Ministry of Health. Since the new COVID-19 variants first seen in the UK in mid-December, at least 50 countries and territories have reported the same strain. In addition, at least 20 countries and territories have detected the similar strain that had been found in South Africa. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Hello Happy Peeps! Ako nga pala si Fort Valencia. Abangan niyo po ako sa Jano Gives Entertainment on Tuesday at 12 noon sa Happy Time.
Happy Time, Happy Time,
Ikaw ay aking. Sa mundong waring walang puwang para sa kanilang pagmamahalan, sapat pa ang tibok ng kanilang mga puso upang bumuo ng daigdig nilang sarili. Inihahandog ng Eagle Broadcasting Corporation ang kauna-unahang romantic teleserye ng Net25. Ang Daigdig Ko'y Ikaw. Tuwing Sabado, 8:08 ng gabi, dito lamang sa Net25.
At ako'y laging sa'yo hanggang magpakailanman.
An outspoken union leader went on trial in Cambodia on Friday for alleged incitement. The latest in a series of court cases activists say are aimed at cracking down on opposition voices. Bong Chun, the leader of the Cambodian Confederation of Unions, was arrested in July after accusing the government of irregularities over the demarcation of the eastern border with Vietnam. He said the newly agreed borderline encroaches on some locals' farmland. Opposition politicians have long accused strongman Premier Hun Sen of ceding territory to Vietnam, harnessing the long-running unresolved border issues between the two countries to whip up nationalist sentiment against his administration. Bong Chun, who has been in pre-trial detention since his arrest, faces up to 2 years in prison if found guilty of incitement to commit a felony or cause social unrest. Since the election in July 2018, when the Premier Hun Sen's party won every parliamentary seat in a vote without a credible opposition, the Cambodian authorities have stepped up arrests of former opposition party members, human rights defenders, and dissenting voices. The same court is also trying around 150 opposition figures and activists on treason and incitement charges that rights groups slammed as a politically motivated sham.
Now, going back to Indonesia, the investigators have successfully recovered data from a crashed passenger jet flight recorder days after the plane with 62 people aboard slammed into the sea, they said Friday. National Transportation Safety Committee head Suharyanto Tajono said the data is in good condition and they're now examining the data. The recorder, which holds information about the speed, altitude, and direction of the plane, could supply critical clues as to why the aircraft plunged about 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters in less than a minute before crashing into the waters of Jakarta on Saturday. A rescue party near the capital's coast has worked for days to salvage human remains and wreckage from the Sriwijaya Air Boeing 737-500, as well as 2 flight recorders. More than 3,000 people are taking part in the recovery effort, assisted by dozens of boats and helicopters. Divers on Tuesday hauled the data recorder to the surface, with the hunt now focused on finding a cockpit recorder on the wreckage-littered seabed. The 26-year-old plane crashed just 4 minutes after setting off from Jakarta, bound for Pontianak City on Borneo Island, a 90-minute fly away. Authorities said the crew did not declare an emergency or report technical problems with the plane before its dive, and that it was probably intact when it hit the water, citing a relatively small area where the wreckage was scattered. The crash probe was likely to take months, but a preliminary report was expected in 30 days.
The ASEAN Committee on Consumer Protection, or ACCP, launched the report of ASEAN Consumer Empowerment Index 2020 Pilot Project, or ACEI 2020, as envisioned under the ASEAN Strategic Action Plan for Consumer Protection 2016 to 2025. The ACEI is a composite index calculated on a country level based on questionnaire-styled surveys in order to benchmark the national level of consumer empowerment in each ASEAN member state, or AMS, against that of the entire region. It's based on a set of key indicators which are equally weighted and grouped into 3 main components: consumer awareness, consumer skills, and consumer behavior. The regional index is calculated as the weighted average of the country's scores in accordance with the percentage of national sample size to total regional sample. A total of 7,185 respondents across all member states took part in the survey, categorized according to 4 criteria, namely gender, location, age, and education. The study acknowledged that due to limited resources, it wasn't possible for the pilot project to go for a full representative sample. On the consumer awareness category, ASEAN consumers scored the highest on consumer rights and responsibilities. Nonetheless, there is a need to enhance the level of consumer awareness on redress mechanisms and for consumer protection authorities to enhance its public advocacy and education programs. Meanwhile, on the consumer skills category, ASEAN consumers scored highest on numerical and financial skills, as well as the ability to detect scams and misleading advertisements. However, consumers will need to further engage on practicing sustainable consumption. Lastly, on the consumer behavior category, ASEAN consumers have the highest tendency to compare products and read the terms and conditions before making a purchase. On the other hand, they are less likely to participate in consumer groups or associations and contribute to policy making or act as agent of change. The survey shows that there is a positive correlation between the level of individual empowerment and the level of education. The ACEI stands at 63.7%, meaning that across the region, on an average, consumers are moderately empowered. The result of this pilot project will help facilitate a better understanding of consumer empowerment in ASEAN and assist the ACCP in further refining ACEI's methodology for future surveys. The next ACEI is scheduled to be launched in 2024.
Meanwhile, the Philippines and China signed Saturday an agreement on economic and technical cooperation that will provide the country with a grant of 500 million renminbi, about 77.38 million US dollar or 3.72 billion pesos from China to support the implementation of infrastructure projects and other development initiatives of the Duterte administration. The grant is intended to support livelihood projects, infrastructure facilities, feasibility studies for major projects, and other projects to be mutually agreed upon by the parties. Undersecretary Mark Dennis Joven of International Finance Group, or IFG, of the Department of Finance, or DOF, signed the agreement on behalf of the Philippines, while Vice Chairman Deng Boking of China International Development Cooperation Agency, or CIDCA, signed on behalf of the Chinese government. The signing of the Grand Accord was witnessed by Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. and the visiting China State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi in ceremonies held at Shangri-La at the fort in Taguig City. The signing of the 500 million renminbi accord brings to seven the number of grant agreements executed and signed with the Chinese government by the Duterte administration.
The country's equities and fixed income exchanges have called on Congress to swiftly pass the proposed Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act, or CREATE, to make the Philippines an attractive investment hub in the region and the domestic capital market a viable venue for raising funds. In a joint statement sent to Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III, the Philippine Stock Exchange and the Philippine Dealing System Holdings Corporation, or PDS, expressed their strong support for CREATE, which they described as, quote, a landmark bill in a series of reform measures undertaken by this administration. We respectfully urge both houses of Congress to prioritize the immediate passage of the CREATE bill so that the country can fully reap the benefits of this reform bill without delay, they said in their statement. The statement of support was signed by PSE President Jose Pardo, PDS Chairman Cesar Consing, and Ramon Monzon, the President Chief Executive Officer of both the PSE and the PDS. Both the PSE and the PDS thank the Department of Finance under Dominguez's leadership for tirelessly working to ensure the timely approval of CREATE, which represents the second package of the Duterte administration's Comprehensive Tax Reform Program, or CTRP. Aside from the CREATE bill, the PSE and PDS also expressed their support for the expansion of the list of transactions qualifying as tax-free exchanges in Section 40C2 of the National Internal Revenue Code, or NTRC, or NIRC. They also backed the removal of the requirement to obtain prior confirmation or tax ruling from the Bureau of Internal Revenue for availing of this benefit in Section 40C2 of the tax code. They said such reforms, quote, will streamline the process of reorganization typically conducted by companies preparatory to going public. And Esther and I will be back with more of ASEAN in Focus after this short break.
Impormasyong mahalaga sa taong bayan. Patas na pagbabalita. Papakinggan ang magkabilang panig. Lilinawin ang mga issue at kaagad na ihahatid ng objektibo. Mata ng Agila. Dumadagit ng pinakasariwang pangyayari, hindi lamang sa loob ng bansa, kundi sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig. Mula sa Eagle News Teams at sa tulong ng makabagong teknolohiya, tiyak na makakalap kaagad ang katotohanan. Para sa mas matalas, malinaw at malalimang pagbabalita. Ito ang mas pinatalas na Mata ng Agila. Inihahatid ng veteranong broadcast journalist na si Eli Saludar. Kasama si Binibining Pilipinas Intercontinental 2019, Emma Tiglao. At pinangungunahan ng batikang mamamahayag ng bansa, Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 hanggang alas 8 ng gabi. Dito sa Net 25.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. In a laging handa public briefing, DTI Philippines Secretary Ramon Lopez urged all micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, and other companies in the country to be digital and support e-commerce. He said that by 2020, and our country is still under strict community quarantine, it is clear that many businesses have used virtual transaction in response to the government's call to stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Let's watch this.
So talagang, yung sabi nga nila, hindi naman maging mahirap, maging better yung 2021. Kasi nga, masama talaga yung nangyari noong 2020. The height of mga lockdowns natin, halos walang economic activity. Sabi natin, less than half lang ang inallow for certain months nung umpisa ng lockdown. So, yung ngayon po, talagang nakikita natin, marami talagang nakaka-recover. And statistics show na even nung, as we were ending 2020, the fact na nagre-reopen na ang ating economy, dumami po yung registration ng businesses versus previous year. Lalo na po yung mga digital, na in-encourage din natin ang mga SMEs at mga maraming kumpanya to go digital, mag-e-commerce para mas lumago pa yung kanilang mga inumpisahang mga negosyo. Kaya ho, ang ating registration dyan ay more than 40 times. Hindi 40%, 40 times. So dating mga less than 2,000, 1,700 lang ang registered nung as of March, ay umakyat to sa mga 88,000 towards November. So talagang 1,700 up to 80,000, 88,000. So ang laki talaga nung nilaki ng mga nagrehistro, lalo na dito sa online businesses po. So talagang ang mga kababayan natin, likhaing entrepreneurial, umahanap ng paraan para talaga rin makasurvive. So maraming mga negosyo talagang nagsulputan dyan at mga nagre-rehistro naman po.
The ASEAN Coordinating Committee on Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, or ACC-MSME, launched The Future of ASEAN, 50 Success Stories of Digitalization of ASEAN Miss publication at the sidelines of the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit back in 2018 in Singapore. Let's take a look back.
The digital economy of ASEAN is rapidly expanding to more than 330 million internet users. Micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as foreign startup companies, are leading the way in this emerging market.
Myanmar has opened up recently and people are moving from no phone to smartphones. What we do is we connect freelancers with businesses, especially startups and SMEs. We've got 14,000 freelancers on board and we're working with over 200 clients.
In Cambodia, public transport has a lot of room for improvement in areas such as fairness, safety, and efficiency.
We bring the technology with the standard price. Passenger can find the driver very fast and the driver can find the passenger easily as well.
Here in the Philippines and other emerging markets, you see more real-world problems that could be solved through digitalization. Our international payment system helps people manage their properties wherever they are. They can facilitate any types of payments and use different funding methods that normally would have been available here in the Philippines.
Vietnam's growing population and need for flexible housing solutions created an opportunity for a local technology startup.
We think about the smart lock. We replace the physical key on the door. Everything be connected by your smartphone.
In subsidiary group, the digital technology is changing all the whole process. I can monitor what is product from my factory, our distributor, how much they have left. We can sell our product through the internet. I can deal with customer in any country in the world.
Indonesia is an archipelago and very widespread. The digitalization helps so much, not only in terms of the consumer side, but also in terms of how we build our supply chain. What we do is we bring forgotten food to the global market, and we also bring the stories and values behind the product.
MSMEs are looking for software solutions that are customizable and require low upfront cost. Our software is developed locally, and we understand the ASEAN market and the local challenges faced by small and medium enterprises.
Factory digitalization and automation significantly raised the level of productivity while maintaining low rate of errors. This has allowed the company to quickly react to fast-changing market demands.
Our product is QR code system that can identify between counterfeit and real product. The brand owner can start the personalized marketing plan or promotion. Digital technology can enable direct communication between business owners and consumers.
We see it as a mission to convey the importance of ICT in Laos and to progress the region from its current state to a higher level by transferring knowledge to a younger generation of entrepreneurs.
Companies that are able to accurately seize the consumer's need have substantial promise of growth in ASEAN. Omise is one example of a foreign startup that has successfully taken advantage of the thriving online consumer market.
The benefit of the starting business in ASEAN is you can expect significant growth, significant demand. People are not afraid adopting new technologies, and we can bring back this whole package to developed countries such as Japan.
The ASEAN governments are currently putting supportive policies in place and initiate regional efforts to assist MSMEs with digitalization.
MSMEs benefit from ASEAN economic integration, especially in digitalization. ASEAN governments help MSMEs in adopting digital technology and creating new business. For Thailand and many ASEAN countries, the most challenging and critical issue is the necessity of the digital adoption of micro enterprises.
ASEAN businesses are increasingly embracing digital technology. The ASEAN Success Storybook tells the story of 50 companies that are flourishing thanks to the use of digital technologies. The MSMEs featured are promoting further digitalization and contribute to enhancing the quality of life as well as industrial structures in ASEAN. Japan continues to stand by ASEAN as one of its oldest friends, recognizing 45 years of ASEAN-Japan friendship and cooperation.
This year marks the 30th anniversary of the dialogue relations between China and the 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. The past 3 decades have seen China-ASEAN relations grow closer and stronger despite the trials and hardships. At present, joint steps by China and ASEAN member states to build a community with a shared future are opening a new chapter towards China-ASEAN common prosperity. Since its launch, China-ASEAN cooperation has always been results-oriented, pioneering and responsive to the trend of the times. Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said in an interview with Xinhua earlier this month. It has become the most successful and vibrant example of regional cooperation. On Saturday, Wang concluded a 6-day Southeast Asia visit, which took him to Myanmar, Indonesia, Brunei, and the Philippines. During the trip, China and ASEAN have reached consensus on stronger cooperation in a range of areas, including COVID-19 vaccines, economic recovery, and regional stability. During Wang's visit to Indonesia, Southeast Asia's biggest economy, he said China is willing to work with Indonesia to jointly put into effort a regional comprehensive economic partnership, or RCEP, at the earliest possible date and release the dividends of the world's largest free trade bloc. The RCEP brings together 15 Asia-Pacific countries, which together account for almost 30% of the world's population and about 30% of global gross-domestic product, or GDP.
Petron Corporation welcomed on Friday the approval of its application as a registered enterprise of the Freeport area of Bataan, but will still go on with its planned temporary shutdown of its Petron Bataan refinery, or PBR. The oil giant, in a statement, thanked the authority of the Freeport area of Bataan, or AFAB, for the positive development. Quote, "This registration of Petron's refinery facility will help make Petron's refining business more competitive by improving its financial stability in the long run." The firm said it is confident that PBR's registration with AFAB will address some of the major concerns confronting their refining core or operation. The local government of Limay endorsed the application for Petron Corporation to become a FAB-registered enterprise after workers and management approached municipal officials for assistance. Petron became the 12th FAB expansion area outside Mariveles town after it was approved by the AFAB board last week. No definite date was mentioned for the temporary refinery stoppage.
The coronavirus pandemic has forced famous tourist destinations to question their business model, though economic realities are likely to stand in way of major changes. In Thailand, which has seen a drop in arrivals of more than 83%, marine fauna including dugongs, turtles, and whale sharks are enjoying a rebound. The Thai government has decided to close more than 150 national parks for an average of 3 months a year and to limit access so that animal and plant life can flourish. From now on, we want quality tourism. We don't want a mass tourist influx into our national parks, said Varawut Silpa Archa, Minister of Natural Resources and Environment. Visitor fees might have to rise to compensate for the lost income, but it is the price we have to pay to preserve natural resources.
And finally, in our news, reigning Olympic champion Carolina Marin bolstered her chances of defending in Tokyo later this year after claiming the Thailand Open in Bangkok on Sunday over top seed Tai Tzu Ying. Take a look. Now, despite having a cold, fourth seed Victor Axelsen of Denmark was electric in the men's final against Hong Kong's Angus Long, ranked 8th, claiming the title in straight sets. Spaniard Marin, 27, a former world number 1, was an imposing force with razor-sharp smashes, clever network, and an unmatched level of aggression and agility. She screamed in delight as she won match point in the second set after steamrolling her 26-year-old opponent from Taiwan 21-9, 21-16 in 42 minutes. Now, the first non-Asian women's player to win an Olympic badminton gold, Marin, has faced an uphill battle to recover from a January 2019 knee injury in time to defend her crown in Tokyo. Meanwhile, Ailsen took just 44 minutes to triumph 21-14, 21-14 over Long. It was back-to-back tournament wins for the Dane 10 months apart after claiming the All-England Badminton Championship in mid-March. The Thailand Open is the first of 3 consecutive tournaments in Bangkok, culminating in the World Tour Finals from January 27. The players have been facing off in a biosecure bubble minus spectators, although the tournament has been overshadowed by 3 positive coronavirus cases. Thank you, Esther, for joining me today.
Thanks, Alma. It's always been my pleasure. And that's the latest news around ASEAN. Thank you all for watching. From EBC Thailand Bureau, I'm Esther Adanga, and we live in interesting times.
I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.